Okay, as usual, give me feedback on sound, picture, things of that nature. Assuming we're live, and we'll get this show running. There he is, indeed. There. He am. Uh, yeah. This is a very difficult time for me, obviously, because I like doing this, but it's postponing my, not very instant by this point gratification. I need to continue watching that grand final, and it is now 2 hours away, and I might even have things to do afterwards, which means that I might have to finish watching that VOD very late today, and that means I have to stay off Twitter so that I don't know how it finishes. And yeah, life is very painful. And to alleviate that pain, let's start playing chess, maybe. Bright eyes and a nice shiny coat. Stop. Yeah, stop making fun of my health issues there, Dodgy. That's not good. All right, challenges. Let's see what we have in store there. My chess 24 is in German currently. It is slightly confusing, but since I only have to press one or two buttons, I assume I should be able to manage it. This is already kind of bad news for me. I don't really... It's been a while since I played any kind of proper 1d4. So, yeah. Running significant risks here, obviously, because I generally don't know a great deal about these positions. Aren't you supposed to start with a6, a4 and then play knight e4? Maybe not. As mentioned, I am very confused about these things, and yeah, this is really not a line to be confused about, because you might just lose. It's a very complicated, very sharp line where actually knowing what you're doing is a kind of a very large prerequisite, or at least so it would appear to me. So I'll just go for like the absolute caveman approach here. I'm pretty sure this is wrong. I think I even understand why this is wrong, but it's too late to stop. And if I start thinking, this is still, very much a theoretical position. If I start thinking here, I'm really in trouble. Because once again, my opponent most likely knows what's going on, and I don't. And no amount of thinking in a very complicated theoretical position is going to compensate for that properly. Yeah, already I feel like I could be in unbelievable amounts of trouble here, because I wanted to play queen f3, but then he goes queen h4, and oh no, I do have a move there. I thought I was completely helpless there, but I actually have a move there. After queen h4, I can play queen g3, sort of force him to take on f4 with the queen, and then I can take on d6 with the knight, and that allows me to make some progress. Wasn't knight b5 c4 strong? Yeah, that's you should probably rephrase that, because those were not the moves that are legal on this board. But yeah, knight b4 was very much an idea. I also was planning to reply to it with e4, e5, basically not paying any attention to my queen side, just trying to get something going in the center. I mean, up to here, this is sort of mainline theory, and as far as I know, this is supposed to be quite good for black. But of course, precision is required from both sides. And my knight c4 e4, I guess it's so non-critical that people don't really know how to reply to it, because nobody does that. Knight c4 b5, rook b5, bishop a6. This I wouldn't have minded at all, because I can, for instance, just play a2, a4, give this, return this exchange, and end up with a very, very strong knight on c4, which is completely unopposed. This wouldn't have this wouldn't have worried me at all. I think what basically would worry me a great deal in a position like this would be if black had been able to achieve some kind of b5, c4, knight c5 setups. That would be tremendously bad news. But returning the exchange for that light squared bishop and the pawn, and locking the knight down on b8, I would be quite happy about that. Not sure about e4, e5, but it's very, very logical, obviously, just pushing my pawns towards the black position, and just gaining more space. I seem to be, for some reason, doing very, very well here. It's a bit confusing to me. Why? Because I am playing a very strong player who is also a much bigger specialist in this opening than I am. I was threatening e6, so I quite like this rook b8 move, but I should still be doing very, very well here. I'm just trying to threaten to push e6 and just kind of queen this pawn. It's once again a very straightforward plan, but sometimes very straightforward plans just work. I think he probably needs to play knight c7 here, and then, oh, hang on a sec. No, yeah, I briefly wondered if I was just winning by force there instead of the move that I made, but I don't think I was. Yeah, and hang on. I wanted to go knight f5, queen f5, e6, but then I realized he has bishop f4 as a reply. Obviously, I can take on f4, take on f5, and the resulting endgame is much better for me, but I don't want much better. I would like to actually kind of win this position by force. So what I'm doing here is I'm trying not to allow bishop f4, and then I will push e6. I'm basically playing sort of for mate here. My desired end result here is just to eventually push these pawns far enough so that I give mate. I don't really like rook d1 though, yeah, precisely because of rook d8. Although, I mean, I'm still reasonably certain I'm doing well, but maybe not as well as I should have been doing. This might just win me the game on the spot. I currently don't see any defense from my opponent, but I'm not entirely sure, for instance, what happens if he goes queen c2. This is the one move that I haven't solved yet. Everything else appears to lose material for my opponent here. Knight d4, I think I can take on h6, and this should be winning. Yeah, d3 is kind of mildly worrying, but I think I should be able to control this properly. The plan is to just go rook h4, d4, for instance, which should give me enough control over the position here. And yeah, decent start to the show, very sharp game, but I have a feeling that somewhere around here I am not doing particularly well. And just to cover the subject the chat brought up, if black does this, I did not see it, but once again, I'm not at all unhappy about this development. This knight is kind of stupid, and I still have e4, e5 ideas. Although then again, maybe something like bishop f8 followed by knight d7. Maybe I dramatically overestimated my position here. And yeah, thank you to Nicola. Was an interesting game, but I'm sure you had a good position out of the opening. And yeah, Nicola says Queen B3 instead of A4 is stronger. Yeah, I can definitely believe that. With kind of similar ideas, but also I now have the option of playing Bishop H3 and completely locking that knight down on B8. So yeah, that makes sense. Let's continue playing though. As usual, I'll start by attempting to get slot. Whoops, that's a non-premium. Was not in time to abort. Yeah, that's stupid. I just saw the rating there, and please don't cost me all this rating. Please. That is kind of annoying. Okay. I saw over 3,000, and I kind of immediately assumed that we can play, but yeah, I'm sure he is great, and that, I mean, no disrespect is meant there, but kind of the whole point of these shows is they are something that is available to premium members. So we kind of briefly discussed this on the show yesterday, that I wonder if my opponent wants to do what people have been doing now, this d4 and queen d2 variation, but I don't know, let's do something else. Yeah, this is also, I think, supposedly a decent version of the Grand Prix for white, so I don't know why I'm so happy about this. I wonder if I can do this, and also I wonder if it's any good. The speed with which my opponent is doing all these things is making me think that maybe this is all some kind of mainline theory and white is supposed to be better here, but I don't really understand why. It's confusing. Why is this so great for white? With the pawn on f2, I could maybe sort of understand why this is supposed to be good for white, because then I couldn't really play king c7 next move, because bishop f4 check would be an annoying reply. But the way it is, this seems to me like this should be at the very least very playable for black, and maybe even sort of long-term better, because I do have the better structure and the bishops. c4 for me or for him instead of knight takes d5? For me, that would be an interesting option. I did not consider it at all for some reason. Yeah, of course for me. For him, it's not a legal move. Yeah, that's an interesting suggestion, Grzechu, which I did not consider at all. I don't want to allow bishop a5 check, it annoys me. I mean, I can play a6, a5 here, but I don't know if I should. It feels like a bit of a waste of a tempo. If he goes bishop a5 check, just how worried should I be about it? It's just that I don't really want to go back to c8, and if I go forward, it gets kind of tricky. It's a funny position, and like I wouldn't mind getting it on the board, but objectively I don't think it's great. So I will attempt not to allow all this. Discombobulated is a very good word. I really like using it. I agree. Yeah, that line Grzechu is giving is interesting, but honestly, I, I still don't quite understand why I should be dodging this endgame. it feels sort of, although rook d8 may have been a mistake, because now after rook b5 I'm in some trouble potentially. That was a misplay. Yep. That I should have thought through better. And in general, rook b3 followed by rook fb1 was something I did not properly appreciate when I was going for the whole thing. I'm still not entirely sure that I'm doing horribly, but then again, maybe I am. Because I just realized after rook b6 check I will not be able to play king takes c5 because he has rook b5 check. Maybe I will be able to take on c5. That is the... I mean, he does have the perpetual there, which I will have to allow. But then again, I'm like, should I be better here? Okay, this requires proper calculation. If I take on c5, he goes rook b6 check. I go king d7. He goes... I think I survived there. Rook d1 check, king e8, and I don't... I want... Yeah, I will show you this after the game. This is exceedingly beautiful. This is such a beautiful variation. Unfortunately for me, it's a beautiful variation in which I lose. Hang on. I think I figured something out which my opponent may have... Oh no. No. No, that was a mistake. That was a mistake, and I now realize why it is a mistake. Yeah, and I am now in a great deal of trouble. Deservedly so. Basically, the point here is if he goes rook d1 check, I thought I can play king e8, but then he goes rook d8 check, king takes d8, rook d6 double check, and then rook d8 mate. This I had seen. What I did not see was that I wanted to... The reason I accepted all this and played rook takes c5 was after rook d1 check, I can play king c7 here. But he just has rook takes f6 discovered check. And I remembered about that move in some other positions, but completely forgot about it here for a second. And then white is close to winning, I guess. Maybe just completely winning, who knows. Yeah, I saw rook d8, rook d6, of course. This is the variation I was raving about when I said I want to show you something after the game, obviously. But missing rook takes f6 in this position is what let me down. Because like rook a6, rook takes a5, or rook b5, rook takes a5, all these things work for me. And by luring the rook to d1, I don't allow rook takes b7, which would have been very strong if I started with king c7 here. Like if I go king c7 here, he goes rook takes b7, discovered check. But rook takes f6 is just very, very strong because my entire king side falls. Yeah, I played this game poorly starting from rook b3, bishop f6, bishop d2. I should have taken different choices there. I still think my position was fine, but I just made very, very questionable choices there. Yeah, this is very bad. There can be no doubt about the evaluation of this position. Although I do have some counterplay. My king is, for the time being, somewhat safe on b8. And if I'm allowed to take on a2 with the rook on a5, I should be able to survive this. And Rosie Plach says, I've never seen Peter flag people. I have actually flagged people, but sort of not flag. I have won games on time. Let's put it like this. I have won games on this website on time, but I generally do offer draws in completely equal positions, for instance, when I have more time. And the draw has been offered to me here. I mean, Jan would never... Actually, I might... The reason I'm now declining this draw offer is that I suspect I might be better. This is not a flagging attempt. This is like, I think I'm actually winning here. Or close to it. Then again, maybe not. But I mean, like, this position is not actually a draw. I don't think anyone, like, in all seriousness, I don't think you accept a draw for in a position like this if it's a classical game. I should start playing faster though. Yeah, now this is definitely not a draw anymore. Yeah, I'm somewhat sorry for my opponent there, but I feel like this is a position where I'm allowed. But I'm allowed to decline a draw offer. What brand is the mouse? This is a generic. This is a generic, sort of somewhat generic Logitech mouse that I'm using. Got back some of my rating, yeah. I'm not that concerned about my rating situation. I'm never going to be one of the absolute highest rated people on the website because I just don't play enough outside of these shows. And you know, for the purpose of these shows, I don't need to be 3100 or anything. This is not a particularly good version of the Reti, frankly. I should not have been allowing this, I feel, but it's not horrible either. I'm not convinced about the you know, relative strength of this rook e1 move, but I'm trying to sort of confuse my opponent into doing something indiscreet. And postponing the capture on d4 makes him think that maybe he can take on f3, for instance, after which I think I'm in time to push d2, d4, and maybe rook b8 is a move he would not have made under different circumstances. But in general, it's not going to change very much. Peter says I'm much worse. Reality is just means it will take longer to win. That's not always the case. And Alex Strada says, good Reti, what's that? That is harsh. I feel like that is unnecessarily harsh to a perfectly playable opening. The good Reti is d4, knight f6. People are on fire today in chat. I think my opponent probably has to play d3 here, to which I will reply knight d4, and then I will try to round this pawn up. Because if he goes bishop c5, after b4, bishop a7, I have so many very good choices, because the bishop is just completely misplaced on a7. And there's really no other way for black to even hold on to the d4 pawn currently. Yeah, this would have been a sensible choice if not for the fact that after knight d4 you have to spend the tempo. No, come on. You cannot do that. So yeah, d3, knight d4, and then some kind of a move, maybe bishop c5. Actually, I completely missed bishop c5. Maybe I'm just worse here. Because knight f3, knight g4 is just very unpleasant. That means that after d3 I may have to go to different squares, for instance to e3. But then black can play b5. The whole point of my idea was to go knight g4 to make it harder for black to play b5 here. And then do something like queen f3, rook e3, all these kinds of moves. Yeah, and bishop c5 before d3 was possible, mighty arms, but I think just starting with d3 is much stronger now that I look at it properly. My entire evaluation of this position was wrong. Okay. Couple more games against the higher rated people I see on the list, and then we'll start mixing it up a bit. Why am I constantly playing white today? Yeah, Reti is OP, clearly. Please nerf. Please nerf. Yeah, people requesting more are going to be left disappointed. I kind of stopped there for a second because there is the option of playing queen g4, but I think you start with b4 anyway. And you consider your options here. And you end up not doing it regardless, I think. That's the very likely outcome. I don't like the whole queen takes g7, queen takes h7 idea here. It just wastes too much time. Favorite dinosaur? Yeah, I've seen this. This is a very very nice picture. It's become a bit of a meme everywhere recently. That picture which says that when you become an adult, people no longer even ask you what your favorite dinosaur is. They don't even care. And yeah, I very very certainly identify with that feeling of emptiness when people stop caring what your favorite dinosaur is. Mine is, I used to really like Triceratops. But probably, you know, the correct answer these days is the stag. I just blundered the b4 pawn. I should have played bishop c3, and I knew there was a reason I should have played bishop c3, but it looked so horrible that I decided not to do it. And yeah, basically, it's the thinking about steeds. Thinking about steeds is what brought this on. Steed is just such a depressing thing that, you know, the moment you start thinking about steeds, your play goes to pieces. It was not worth 2 tempi. If we're, I mean, b4 pawn is very important here. Well, any pawn at any point basically is very important, but giving up the b2 pawn in this position is tremendously bad for white. Yeah, those steeds. Nizahe knows where it's at. This is why I started to talk about stags, obviously. I feel like I should do this. My position remains bad, but I might maybe at some point get some counterplay. I hope. Who are we talking about there? That you saw? Lucas. Who's Lucas? This, I feel, gives me completely undeserved hope. I might even be doing quite well, no? The c2 pawn does fall, but I think it's much more important that I traded off all of those pieces which were horrible, and I am now left with the pieces that I quite like. And I have potential ideas against the black king side now. Something like queen g4, rook f4 might actually be I was not aware he was called Lucas. That's me completely, once again, being completely unaware of my surroundings. I've played a very large amount of games against Schellingford, and I had no idea his name is Lucas. Shame on me. Maybe I should have started with Rook B2. I want to make sure I don't blunder any F2 related tactics here. I do not mean George Lucas. George Lucas is an evil genius. Yeah, more tactics I can blunder here. I really don't want to trade this knight for anything. I want to keep it on the board, which is why I'm making this really weird looking move, and I'm not entirely happy about weakening my king's position like this, because now the rook will find it very hard to leave the second rank because of all the queen c2 checks I will then immediately blunder. But I didn't really want to allow d5, d4 discovered check, and I am very much against trading my beautiful beautiful knight on d6 for anything. I wonder if I can take on b7 and go king h3. It looks weird, but might be playable. I can take on b7 with the knight, but then he goes d5, d4. I guess he goes d5, d4 if I take with the rook as well. I mean, my other option is to play knight b5, but it's very slow. Allows rook f5. I feel like I still have to do it though. He has queen b6 in reply, which is going to be awkward. Weird position. I can also just completely ignore it and start pushing my stuff forward. Like g4, king g3 makes my king position maybe slightly safer. And also I want to maybe start threatening some kind of h4, h5. Queen c7 with the idea of rook f5 was interesting there. Yeah, very possibly. But since I'm kind of planning to play g4 anyway, I wouldn't have been all that scared. Because his bishop is so passive here, I'm still sort of in control of my destiny here. I wanted to go rook d2 and then I spotted bishop b5. It could be a problem. Let's go with this. It protects my f3 pawn. He has bishop c6 though, which I blundered. Well, not blundered, but may have underestimated. I should also start playing faster, obviously, but it's very difficult for me to force myself to play faster. Nope. I have queen e4, which probably equalizes, but I'm looking for more here. Completely unfairly, I should not be looking for more in this position. I'm still worse, I suspect, but it's a nervous tick. I'm always kind of looking for more. And I'll probably shut up for a second because this requires attention. I'm winning some material back here, which is obviously welcome news. Yeah, this is a good sequence of moves for him. Bishop on d5 is very strong. I do have some play on my own though. This might only be good enough for a draw, but oops. Do I have more than a draw here? Who knows? Okay, that was an interesting end to this game. Yeah, obviously he was doing very, very well up to a point, and yeah, I blundered Queen C2. Yeah, that was a completely unobjective move, Queen H5. Of course, I should take a draw here. I shouldn't be better, and yeah, Queen C2 would have punished my optimism immediately. I just resigned here. I have no moves, but. For a second there, I decided, and obviously, yeah, no, that doesn't change. I was going to say that Queen G6. If I want to play for this mate, I should play Queen G6, but it leads to the same. Yeah, had I realized Queen C2 was a move that existed, I would have taken the repetition. But all in all, I think an interesting game. Obviously, greatly spoiled by my decision to just blunder a pawn, which is kind of important in these positions. But from that moment on, I felt I fought reasonably well. Queen takes f8 wasn't winning there. No, it wasn't, because the b-pawn queens. I assume this is the position you were talking about, Rospilach. And yeah, I did see this tactic existed, but unfortunately for me, the b-pawn is just too strong. Okay. Let's start mixing it up a little bit. Or maybe one last game against elite bosses. And why am I white in every single game? And then we can start mixing it up. Yeah, there seems to be a difference of opinion about whether I should play somebody called Bong Cloud if I reach 3000. First of all, I think I'm extremely unlikely to reach 3000 today. And secondly, I don't know why this is so good. And secondly, I need more details on Bong Cloud and why I shouldn't not or should not play against him, because if he is such a polarizing figure, I feel like I need more info. No, I just click on, I look for higher rated people in the list. Normally for the first hour of the show, my approach is I look for the highest rated challenges and I just accept those. This is very sharp, but I feel I can make this move. So I will try doing this, because otherwise, like, my entire play, if I don't take on e4, my entire play just doesn't make any sense, because the bishop will just retreat to h7. The whole point of playing bishop g5 here was to try and hunt down this bishop on f5. But the more I look at this, the more I doubt the wisdom of going for this position for me. Because black probably gets a lot of counterplay with c5. And by a lot of counterplay, I mean I could very easily be in tremendous amounts of trouble, even potentially. Because positionally, if I don't pick up the pawn on e4 very fast for no counterplay, and black breaks up my center, my d4 and d5 pawns, with the way my pieces are positioned, are going to be just very, very easy prey for my opponent. This move, on the other hand, I felt was giving me options I did not necessarily deserve, because in this position already Queen c7 feels like maybe is mathematically the only move that black can make. and he is still in a lot of trouble there. So that seems like a miscalculation by my opponent. I can take on c5 immediately, I can take on c5 after bishop c6, bc6, and then dc. Both feel very, very strong. I don't know which one is even stronger, to be honest. I can't make a decision on that. I'll start with this because I think not having to calculate queen takes e6 later on might make a lot of sense for me here. And now e4 is hanging, and also a bigger deal potentially is that b2, b4 just threatens to pick up this bishop. So yeah, c5, I think he should have started with something like castles or bishop b6. I don't think I can play b4 because queen takes e5 is a mess, but I can start with this move. And, well, I am a decent amount of material up here for, frankly, not very much. I will even go for this because I feel this is maybe the simplest way for me to convert, not even allowing the rook to land on d5. Maybe I should not have allowed rook a3, but then again, I mean, most things are very, very strong here. I'll just ignore it, frankly. I don't really need the pawn on c3. I think my passers on the queen side are just more important here. No, it's okay not to resign here. There's still some game left, but I mean, objectively, yes, the situation I think is quite well understood here. I have relinquished some of my advantage, but I am a very, very healthy pawn up here for not very much. Rook a3, I guess, but they will at some point start running, and then the game will, for all intents and purposes, be over. My opponent is, of course, perfectly entitled to continue until that has actually happened. But I think I control everything significantly well here to not really be worried about any piece activity or anything. Okay, let's start pushing. Was that the first objectively of the day? I don't know, Nizahe, you tell me. I haven't been paying close attention. That serves him right to not fully committing to the Bong cloud with e4, d5, king e2. I have no idea what you're talking about, but I assume, like, I also kind of vaguely recall some Bong cloud games I've seen, and is that some kind of a super user? And I don't want to slander people, but is that some kind of an account which does something incredibly weird for the first 10 moves and then plays impeccably from that moment onwards? Are we planning to watch any movies while I'm in town? I think Jan did a boo-boo and watched everything I potentially wanted to watch before I arrived here. So the answer probably is no. But maybe there's something else on that we could potentially see. I'm not sure about this bishop f4 move. And by I'm not sure, I mean I'm not sure how to react to it. It feels very playable. It feels very weird, but also very playable somehow, which confuses me because it shouldn't be the way white plays this line in general. I wanted to go knight h5, bishop b3, e5, but then d5, knight e7, d6 worries me. And I don't really want to allow it. So it feels like I might have to play d6, but then after knight f3, knight f3, he gets back to sort of normal positions. White doesn't always play bishop f4 in the 4 in those lines, which means that I probably win some time compared to the main lines. But yeah, interesting reply to a somewhat offbeat system that I chose. Was not aware of its existence. Really curious as to how I should reply to this, frankly. Would I recommend any book, video series to learn and master 2-3 openings in order to make a difference while playing at around 2000 chess 24 rating? No, I think it's like you don't need specific video series knowledge for this. And I'm not very good at separating videos available on the website in terms of level of people they're intended for. I'm not the best person to ask, but in general, I will just go with my usual advice because not because I'm bored and don't know don't want to think, but I honestly think this is the correct advice, and that is you should play however big your volume is now. You should probably keep it or increase it, but the important thing there is you should treat those games as serious games. You shouldn't be like there's nothing particularly wrong with flagging, and Blitz is sort of a separate art form where clock is very much part of the calculation. But if you want to improve your kind of all-round chess skills by playing Blitz, you should be trying as hard as possible to actually pay attention to every single move you make, not just play quickly and try not to blunder pieces in one move, but actually try to formulate plans and so on. Try to improve. You could also, if you played something interesting, you could also actually analyze your Blitz games afterwards. There are some Bong Clowns developments in chat. I will address them later, or at least I will read up on them later. But if you want to just improve your opening knowledge, of course there are videos available on the website which will be very useful for that, but recommending specific 2 or 3 will be very difficult. I don't know what your tastes are. I don't know what your existing repertoire already is. Which players' games would you recommend to play through just for the pleasure of it? There's such a wide choice. I mean, classics are good, but there is just, like, if you take Kasparov in his prime, there is just such a wealth of material there. Both captures here win, and basically the game, I haven't been talking about the game very much, but d4, d5 here is just a mistake, and once black collects this pawn on c4, he's just winning, so... Yeah, I don't know, let's go with the idea of having 2 passers instead of 1. Of course, taking with the a pawn and using the a file was also perfectly satisfactory here. The definitive guide to the Bong cloud. I feel like I've stumbled into some sort of dark web situation here with people sharing semi-banned knowledge of things that no mere mortal has any real mastery over, or yeah, I feel I should not have allowed all this, but taking with the a pawn I mean, in practical terms, was clearly safer and more reliable. Bong Cloud develops the most important piece, the king. Okay. Yeah, and that's an unfortunate move by Fuchs-Rudel, which effectively finishes the game, because not only do I pick up more material, but by playing e4 he has in effect closed down his own bishop on g2, which maybe could have caused me some trouble, because I would have to calculate like d5, d6 tactics on every move. Whereas now I can just continue pushing. Alas, the only advantage of the Bong Cloud is that it avoids the mighty Grunfeld and Archangelsk. Yeah, I don't know if that's enough though. And I have by this point opened the link that Nombringer mentioned in chat. So if this ends up irrevocably, I can't pronounce words today, corrupting my mind, we know who to blame, right? I'm slightly showing off here. There was absolutely nothing wrong with just going a1 and playing a position of full rook up to provide Jan for more material for his book, but this is also good. Don't play the Bong Cloud against Lawrence. He studies this stuff. Yeah, I promise you I won't. No problem at all, Fuchs-Rudel. If you want to play before against the Sicilian, I think you should do it immediately. I think starting with a3 just kind of gives the game away, gives black too many additional choices. And yeah, I remember I played in the Abbey Home Open in Brussels twice in my life. And the first one I played, which was I think in '96, I went there on my way home from playing in the Tilburg round robin together with Boris, who used to live in Brussels at that point with his first wife. And in that Open eventually I played some serious opposition towards the end, but it was a junior tournament with a lot of locals, and in the first rounds I played a lot of lower rated players. And I remember I played against somebody who went for e4 c5 before against me, and I thought for a little bit and just played b6, and I very vividly remember how basically the light just went out of his eyes when I did that. And the game was over by move 20 or so. Not because it's so strong, it's just a normal move. It doesn't, like, it's not better or worse than anything else in this position, but it has a very dispiriting influence on the white players who thought they were playing a very sharp gambity kind game, and instead are forced to play something normal and boring. I probably have misplayed this position quite significantly, because I would like to take with the bishop, but then after queen g4 it gets a bit worrying. I don't really like that position very much. And b takes c5, if he starts with bishop c4 in particular here, because rook b1, bishop d5, I once again will start thinking like that I'm doing fine. But if no, hang on, bishop c4 I can take on g2. Okay, I take it all back. This I think is kind of useful for me because it drives the queen away from... g4 is a very good square for this piece, and I want to move it to slightly worse squares. For instance, now bishop c4 is not really very possible because g2 is hanging again. Can I give you some hints on how to evaluate the position, says Sanket Chakravarti. And proper positional evaluations are, I think, very, very largely a function of pattern recognition more than anything else, which means that you will become better and better at it with experience. And it's not something that you can describe really. It's just something that you will simply improve at the more you play, because you will more and more often encounter situations which you have seen before, and which through experience and through, I don't know, analyzing with engines or discussing it with your opponents and so on, you will just know what the answer is or close to it. And yeah, this improved quite drastically for me, obviously, at some point, because I am now a piece up due to this very timely g5, g4 attack that I launched. And playing f5 allows me, first of all, to lock down this queen on a4, because it probably wants to go to e4, but it no longer can. And also it allows me to play king f7 and connect my rooks, which is something I need to do here to start trading pieces and converting to a winning endgame. Yeah, now we can. It's a bit of a dry way to convert a completely winning position, but it's perfectly serviceable. My structure is inviolate here, and if that's the way to pronounce that word. And very soon, the fact that I have more pieces on the board will start. We'll start telling. Yeah, these are kind of legends, Passion. You hear this being said about people, and I'm not going to say this is entirely untrue and never happened in the entire history of mankind, but I don't think you can sort of single out Botvinnik and say that he was much better than all the other world champions at evaluating a position. I think that would just be wrong. Do I own and use any chess sets? I think any chess player with a career that spans as long as mine does, sort of by necessity accumulates a tremendous amount of chess sets. And I mean, if you include the ones I will never ever use because they're clearly decorative, and like my opinion on the decorative chess sets is they're very nice to own, but you cannot work on them. And I think most chess players will tell you exactly the same, that to actually do any kind of serious work for more than 10 minutes, you need basically a Staunton set or something closely approximating a Staunton set. Functional, that doesn't provide a distraction. And I really like properly weighted pieces. If I have a preference, I really like pieces which are maybe slightly on the heavier side, because then I think it's nicer to move them around when you feel the weight of a piece in your hand. Have I read Man's Search for Meaning? I have not read Man's Search for Meaning. I would recommend Searching for Meaning, but not aware of that particular book. Do I ever do simuls? I do, or simuls. I do them occasionally, and I have, somewhat surprisingly for myself, I have 2 lined up in a row in my home city in September. because in general I don't get very many offers to do simuls in Russia. But I obviously do them occasionally, sure. Don't really like f6 knight f6 in connection with rook b8 in particular. It's not unplayable what my opponent is doing here, but it feels somewhat inconcrete, if that's the way to describe it. But still not that bad at all. Black wants to play bishop d6, then maybe e6, e5. I would still not, if it was sort of up to me, I would not want my rook on b8 in positions like this, because bishop f4, for instance, here is a tempo. Yes, black still has bishop d6, but you don't want to put your pieces on squares where they can be attacked for no reason. But then again, the whole bishop d6 e5 plan is surprisingly difficult to meet. I have read the catcher in the Rai, but I've been planning to reread the entire Salinger canon for some time now, but when I first read, and I have read, I believe, the entire Salinger canon, Catcher in Rhyme was my arguably least favorite Salinger book. I liked the Glass family books a lot better. I'm contemplating playing c4 here, but there are drawbacks to that as well. I'm a bit confused. Not gonna fight you. I didn't say it was a bad book, but like, I will take, I don't know, Raise High the Rubim's Carpenters over Catcher in the Rye any day, or Frenny and Zooey, or, well, more or less any Glass family book. Surprisingly confusing position. I'm aware I'm burning a lot of time here, but I'm not only talking about Salinger, I'm thinking, and I should, be able to handle having 2 minutes. I'm just not very happy with my options here. And frankly, I'm not very happy with what I'm doing, but I did have to start making moves at some point. I don't know, I always felt sort of very interested in the English language, and yeah, knight takes e6 in particular is a horrible move. I should have played queen e2. And then again, yeah, like this entire sequence has been one large misplay. Now black goes e6, e5, and arguably black is just a little bit better. As mentioned, I did not really like my options, and there were things there to discuss and things there to think about, but I did not end up solving the problem. My favorite Russian writer is probably Dostoevsky. I don't really understand this move though. Like, if you have a choice between knight d7 and rook e8, you should more or less always play rook e8, because by placing the knight on d7, you lock down your own pieces. The bishop on c8 is now much harder to develop, and so on. I don't know if I can help you with any of this, Sun Kid, because I mean, the Gelf and Dogart books are very good on that, but they're not specifically dedicated to evaluating positions. They're just very, very good to give you an insight into how really top level players approach chess. Weird position, because I would like to go knight e3, but this gives my opponent a chance to correct his previous mistake and play the knight to f6 back. It's kind of a weird situation where, I mean, it's obvious that knight e3 is the first move you consider here. But I would very much like to keep the knight on d7 for as long as possible, because it's in the way of everything there for him. That was ages ago, Spills. Not all of my free time, but you have to understand that I came from, you know, an environment which we did not have very much access to strong computers and good video games. And I can even tell you what I played, because I feel I know who you're talking about. And yeah, I played a lot of Siberia on that trip. Siberia with a C, first letter C. And it was a very good game, even though I don't remember any details. But I remember I was very engrossed in it. But in those years, I mean, I was a normal teenager. What normal teenager doesn't like the idea of playing video games and feeling, you know, like the entire available time with it? How important do you think a private coach is for chess improvement, considering there is so much material available online? Depends on the coach. I think finding a very good specialist. I probably should have taken on d7 first, but okay, shouldn't really matter that much. If you find a really good specialist who is not kind of phoning it in, but who actually becomes interested in making you a better player, I think this is invaluable. But yeah, that's a good move, shedding forward, actually. I did not consider bishop h3. But if you find somebody who just, you know, gives you generalized advice, you know, of the type that I am giving you right now, but I am not a coach, you know, and neither do I aspire to become a coach in the immediate future. Gelfand Auger, not Dogger. Dogger is a Hearthstone streamer. I don't think he writes books on evaluating chess positions. And yeah, on the subject of me playing video games, I obviously still play a ton of video games, as evidenced by... yeah, I'm trying to blunder something here. We'll finish this discussion later. I couldn't really understand what rook b6 was all about, and then my opponent played bishop a6 and it became slightly clearer to me. Yeah, I'm not playing this at all well, frankly. This phase of the game has been one major misplay after another. All of these questions are designed to make you blunder, Peter. Shameful behavior, really. I do not disagree. Yeah, well, there were some mistakes in there, but in general I think my opponent played well. But mainly I really couldn't understand why not rook e8 in this position. This is a very good square for the knight. You do not need to move the knight away from f6. Yeah, I think it's quite clear that Lars Brobakken was joking, and it was a good joke. And please don't give him any grief for it. Can I type the name of the book in the chat? I'm pretty sure you can use Google. Unless you're banned by Google somehow. There are obviously many playable options against the bishop d3 systems in the Peerts and or modern, but I was wondering if I can use somehow the fact that my knight is still on on g8 and I could maybe play e6 knight e7, but it's not that great. Yeah, we used to have very long thematic matches against Alexander Morozevich in starting from this position in the old, in the golden age of ICC. This was like the starting point of our very serious discussions. He generally played either d5 or d takes e5 though. Bishop e3, I am less certain how I'm supposed to continue here. I don't know if this is great. Frankly, I doubt it, but I just wanted to do something. Mix it up a little bit. What he should do is just take on g4. There's really nothing wrong with this structure change for white. The pawn often goes to g5 later on. Exactly, and then it becomes a very serious problem for black to deal with. Yeah, something like this. I mean, I'm obviously significantly worse here. I should not have done that, but I just wanted to try something. What do you think of playing blindfold chess as a mind exercise? I think it's like for me personally, I never really had an occasion to try, and I would very much like at some point in my life to give a blindfold simul on some kind of a reasonable number of boards, just to see if I can still do it. And by still, I mean do it in general, because as mentioned, I've never tried. I'm obviously not going to touch, any kind of Gareev type numbers, because that man is a freak of nature. What he does is like awe-inspiring and alien, and I don't know how he does it. I honestly have like zero idea how the things that he does are even possible. But something like a 10-board simul, and just to see like what kind of preparation time would be required for me to be able to do that, and things of that nature. I used to do quite decently in the Monaco tournaments, Lars Brobakken. But this is playing one game against very strong opposition, but still only one game. And it's very, very different in terms of, mental concentration required compared to playing, I suspect, even 10 against, yes, I understand, varied opposition, but still, it's 10 blindfold games. I did not really like the move f3 that my opponent played there instead of g5. I feel like in these positions you generally just play g5 and you're happy about it. And f3 gives me, these types of counterplays later in the game. And in general, I think my opponent's play has been less than concrete. And bishop d4 is just a very large blunder. I'm now completely winning because there's just no defense against rook takes d4 and knight takes f3 check. Yeah, some of the very, very, when I became a strong player and I started getting those invites, this is what the circuit looked like. You played Vike in January, you had a bit of a break, then you went to Linares, which would run until like the last third of February until, let's say, 10th of March. And very often, without even going home, you would go from Linares to Monaco to play the Monaco tournament. And that was just such a pleasant circuit to be on, because they were extremely strong, extremely well organized tournaments. And now only Vike is still there out of those three. And Vike is still a tremendously enjoyable tournament to play in terms of organization and people running it, and the strength of field. But I do miss the other tournaments. And actually, Knight takes f3 may have been even stronger, but this is fine. And in particular, Monaco was just such a unique tournament in the calendar. It really, there is nothing even remotely comparable with it now that it's gone. Yeah, I don't know if that's a real problem, Lars Brobakken. Large panorama image of water making players seasick. I don't think that's an actual thing that happens, but who am I to judge? Also, I really don't like what I'm doing here, but I think e6 is not the way to punish my opening choices. If you go for bishop f5, knight c6, you should either play d4 in that position or maybe take on c4. Once you play e6, what you get is your normal kinds of, knight f3, d5, g3, bishop f5 is, a very large body of theory exists there. But the knight almost never belongs on c6 in these positions. There is no round today, Guillaume. This is why both I and Diana are doing bunters. We would not be, insane enough to do bunters on a day where we would potentially have 6 hours of live on air chess talking to do. That would be a bit too much. I did end up recording a reasonably long video yesterday before the round and then a video after the round, but I'm a glutton for punishment, obviously. The lovely Dutch winter weather and lack of ATMs do compensate for the seasick. You're not gonna find a customer here, stalemate. I quite like Vike as a town as well. I think the food choices are exceptional. People are very friendly. There are places where you can play no pocket billiards. I'm not buying any of this. And I'm pretty sure you can find an ATM or two in the town. This is a weird position. Like, I should be much better, but I'm not sure I am. This is now kind of a very critical juncture, because if I get knight d3 followed by f4, I think I'm much better. But I think my opponent could have tried stopping me from achieving those things. I also could have tried not allowing knight b4. I think it was a very, very viable option for me not to allow this. But I'm still better, because I should normally have a very large attack on the king side, which develops sort of on its own. Once again, bringing us to the kind of well-publicized. Actually, in that respect, queen b3, no. I was going to say it was a mistake, but I don't want to allow knight d5, so it's actually a smart move. It's a smart move kind of by accident, but it's a smart move nonetheless. And the point here is that because of the opposite color bishops, I will at some point have a very, very strong attack on the king's side. How long does it take you to check the game and then make a recap of it? Well, I do them in one take. I almost never re-record anything unless somebody, storms the studio and there are extraneous sounds on the video. Or if my intro, I have on occasion re-recorded those like minute and a half intros I do before the game. If I feel like I got so tongue-tied during the recording of the intro that it becomes unintelligible. But the actual chess material I almost invariably do in one take, and so that you can just judge by the length of the video how long that takes. And here, obviously, my opponent, I mean, rook c8, bishop d8 is not the way to meet those threats, but I would be kind of crushing through regardless. As for the preparation, generally between half an hour and an hour to click through, depending on how tactical the game is. Because my positional impressions of the game, I do have the discussions we did live on air to fall back on, and those you generally don't need to recheck very hard. But if there is some kind of very serious tactical point that we kind of glossed over during the live show, then you do need to check it. Is it true that I will feature in the Lacoste's 50 Shades of Blue commercial during the Super Bowl? I wish. Yeah, and my Twitch mods are in chat, and Oli says, I'm still sad that Peter deleted the one right away where he forgot to switch to the board view. Yeah, at some point, I think like about 25 to 30 minutes in, I realized that I've been talking with the full screen view this entire time. So that would have been an interesting video for people to exercise their blindfold chess skills. But yeah, I did at some point realize that and had to re-record the entire thing. That was fun. Yeah, people playing the Mora against me. Feels like they're trolling, but maybe they aren't. This is not a good move. In general, things I do against Mora are generally beyond horrible. Like the amount of times I got what should by rights count as a completely lost position against the Mora on this website during Banter Blitz is unbelievable. I'm not a huge fan of the Mora, Richter Kirtle, but as with many other openings, I hold this opinion without ever actually having spent any time to analyze it. Therefore, my opinion is, I will be the first one to say that you can very easily discount whatever it is that I say about the Mora. Things I do against morals are beyond horrible. Yeah, make fun of my slightly stuffed nose, Galactic. That's the thing to do. But I mean, Mora doesn't lose, but I don't think it's the best reply to the Sicilian. It's a bit of a shortcut for people who feel that the wide variety of things that Black can do against the Sicilian. Not Black can do against Sicilian, but I mean there are at the most lazy count, like 5 very, very distinct separate Sicilians that you need to study if you play knight f3 on move 2. So I understand why you would want to play the Mora, because you just go to d4 on move 2, and you smirk and you say to the poor Sicilian player, you thought you were getting something original today, you thought you were going to engage in some kind of intricate positional play or what have you. Instead we will be playing on my home turf where you know, the I will be the one choosing the battleground, and you will be out of your comfort zone and playing something you don't really know and don't particularly like. So yeah, I can definitely understand the attraction, but uh, if you want to develop as a chess player, I would suggest that Mora probably should not be your first port of call against the Sicilians. And yes, studying proper Sicilians is very time consuming and difficult. And I'm trying to figure out which capture will blunder knight d5 in the most painful fashion. Because white can actually reply with knight d5 to, I believe both captures, but I'll go with this. Time to mention my book. Please do, Passion. Last banter you lost against an old version of Richter Rouser. Don't remember losing against it, but I mean, Richter Rouser kind of disappeared from the top Grandmaster practice, and I for one used to play it very seriously with black, and I felt it was very playable, and I still sort of feel the same, but I just kind of lack the energy to reacquaint myself with all the complications. If you mean the one that I played with white and there was this rook takes c3 exchange sacrifice, that game ended in a draw. Yeah, I wouldn't mind that at all, Mikhailo, if you could do that. Yeah, in general, as I said, one of the things which I believe Twitch in general does very well is the option of creating command shortcuts, like all the exclamation mark something that you can do on Twitch. And I would very much like to, you know, create such shortcuts for, let's say, these sessions, because there's quite clearly a number of questions which resurface over and over again, and just having exclamation mark Paul Borta would be a useful thing to do. I used to play the Taimanov quite seriously, Simone. It hasn't disappeared entirely, but I think I suspect the rise of all the Queen f3, Queen g3 variations has played a very large part in it, because all the people who now very, very seriously play these little lines where white just aims to get a very pleasant, completely risk-free endgame by move 10, they have discouraged the Taimanov players quite seriously. Knight d5 was a mistake there. White had to bite the bullet and take on d7, allow me to take on f3. But my pawn on e6 would be quite weak there, and I wasn't at all sure I was better. Maybe I was even worse, but I just felt like the bishop had to finally come to b7. I mean, I needed to activate some pieces. Rook c8 is not required. I mean, I could have done this cleaner, but once again, it'll do. It's not a position in which too much precision is required anymore. I am at sort of two very healthy pawns up here for not very much. Important thing not to blunder knight c6 check, though. King e7, knight c6 check would be a rather unpleasant way to lose this position. Okay, so we are at an hour and a half mark. Let's play some games against higher rated opposition for a bit, and then we'll see where it leads us. E4, C5, knight A3, what was Vegans's idea with this move? I think, you know, in very large part he was trolling, but also it just, you're playing the C4, E5 English with black, with an extra tempo would be, I think, my easiest explanation. Knight A6 in that position is not a particularly helpful move, but it is a developing move. One more piece of yours comes into play, and you can later develop it to either, let's say, if we're talking from the white side, C3 knight C2 sometimes becomes a plan. In rare cases it goes to even C4. But mainly you just make a developing move and say, okay, this is what I've done. That's an interesting choice, because we talked about this when Shah played it against MVL, and we were saying that C5 just completely equalizes here. I wonder if my opponent is going to prove me wrong. There's also the whole E6, B6 stuff, which leads to more complicated positions, but positions I don't really like, so. Not as usual, I actually don't play a ton of Grunfeld on this show. Petkov. I've played enough Grunfeld in my life to want other things. So I play a lot of Dutch and normally get horrible positions. I play d4, d6. I already played d4, d4, d6 on this show, actually. So yeah, not... would be interesting to actually do a survey and see what my most commonly used reply to 1d4 is during the Banter Blitzes. Just makes me wonder why knight a3 isn't just as good. Because I guess after knight a3, black can play d5, cutting off all of those potentially reasonable squares for this knight. And no, I mean, if you want to play knight a3, I think e4, c5, knight a3 is about as logical a way to develop that knight to a3 as is achievable. And I mean, Vadim is a very interesting independent thinker about the game. I mean, the move, obviously, white is no longer better, but the move is not completely ridiculous. How many languages do you speak? Just the two. Don't really speak anything else. 100% with this system. That is very impressive. Very impressive, Passion. What's your opinion on Fiona's incident in the French league, betting against herself and scoring 1 out of 8? Is that an actual fact, or are we speculating here? If that is actually what happened, I mean, my general approach to betting on chess yeah, okay, if you're trolling, this wasn't a particularly good troll, because this is kind of slender territory. It also went sort of against everything I knew about Fiona, so that wasn't very good, perp. I mean, trolling in chat I don't mind and engage in some of it myself, but that thing you did right there, that was nasty. Don't do that. Yeah, we've kind of glossed over here because over the game, but starting with c6 already, I felt very very comfortable, and in particular, playing knight b1 in this position just can never be correct. You have to take and play bishop d3 or something like that, even bishop e2 here, but going back to b1 is just not the way to go about things, and this loses material. But even here, I think if white plays bishop e2, although then I realized, I actually saw this during the game, that I already threatened this. But if this is a threat, you can take on e4, knight e4, and just play bishop d3. I'm not even sure white is much worse. I do have the bishops, it's a nice position, but white is perfectly solid, no weaknesses. And but yeah, going back to b1 is just never a solution in a position like this. Do I think the Lynx Gambit is still playable at under 2000 elo? I'm very bad with opening names, in particular in English. So can you... okay, King's Gambit. King's Gambit is playable. As a surprise weapon, if this is your repertoire and people know this is your repertoire, you're in some trouble. But as a surprise weapon, I think it's playable at almost any level. I don't think you can go high enough to make the King's Gambit completely unplayable for one game if the person you're playing against does not expect it. But yeah, as the example of Alex Fedorov, for instance, shows, and you know, young people today probably don't even know who that is properly. But there was a Belarusian grandmaster who used to play the King's Gambit more or less to the exclusion of everything else as his absolute main weapon for years and years with decent results. I mean, at some point he did become strong enough at chess that he started playing in tournaments where people were starting to punish him. But I mean, he got to like 2650, and this is where what am I doing here? I mean, knight c5 is just extremely strong here. Yeah, this is less of a worry because here I will be able to sort of complete developments. But knight c5 was attacking everything, and I wasn't even entirely sure how not to kind of lose on the spot. That's maybe a bit strong, but positions I was quite seriously considering after knight c5 were incredibly unpleasant for white. Yeah, I think people in chat can help you better than I can, Anshuman, because I haven't actually sort of I haven't done any proper tactics study in a long time. It's not my, like, systematic tactical studies are not my area of expertise. So I will refer you to chat, and I'm sure chat can help us out. Chess24 studio is in a very good part of town. There are ambulances everywhere. But no, this is a very nice green area. About a 15-minute walk from the Ulster, I think. Yeah, Cochrane is, once again, against somebody who knows what he's doing, the Cochrane is probably not the best way to react to Petrov, but once again, as a surprise weapon, you can definitely play the Cochrane. And queen b8 is a mistake. He could have played a number of moves which did not allow e4, e5, and I guess my opponent felt that by playing queen b8 he is stopping e5, but he really isn't. Yeah, and this is just more or less completely lost for black. Because of how misplaced his pieces are, he's just going to get mated on the king side here. Pieces are nowhere near close to the king enough to be able to hold this. Yeah, huge imbalance in terms of the white-black split today. I feel like I maybe played maybe 5 black games at most, and something like 15 games with white. Don't really understand why that is. Reverse Grunfeld. Reverse Grunfeld is fun. I have more tempi. Although this system is surprisingly quite playable, and people have been doing this reasonably seriously. This is like a bishop e3 Grunfeld, where you give black an additional move to make at some point. It doesn't sound like it should be good, but it's actually somewhat playable, surprisingly. Most people reply with knight c3 followed by queen a4 check, but I wanted to try something else today. How do they do this in the bishop e3 positions? I'm not doing this right. I don't like what I'm doing at all. This probably equalizes, but this is not a way to play for advantage. I really don't like what I did there. And I thought the Grunfeld with an extra tempo was just winning. No. Sadly, it's not. I don't like queen d7 though. You either had to play d5, d4 there to stop me from achieving knight c3, or you could have played bishop c5 to have d4 and then take with the bishop. Those two options were, I think, very, very strong for black. This is way too slow. I mean, it might still be playable, but this is, like, compared to what I was prepared to get, this is way too slow. With an extra tempo, you can finally draw with the Grunfeld. Shots fired. Come on, guys. You know better than that. You can never draw with the Grunfeld. The opening is so horrible. Any predictions for the 2018 World Chess Championship, I assume? Well, Magnus starts as a favorite, of course, but you know, the question of how large a favorite is what's in debate. I didn't blunder bishop g4. I'm trying to make my opponent weaken his light squares significantly, and then I'm hoping to give mate using those light squares. Who is better, you or Vallejo? At what? What's the metric there? At chess? At chess, I would assume I'm slightly better than Paco, because once again, this is you know, modesty is all good and well, but there's also, you know, the matter of record. And I think my record speaks for myself. If we're talking, I don't know, streaming or this weird game these Spaniards play, which is like tennis but not quite, Paco definitely will have the edge. I want to give mate, and I actually found some very interesting way to try to give mate here, but I don't know if it works, but I want to try anyway. Yeah, bishop e4, f5, bishop takes f5, easy, unfortunately runs into queen takes h6. So it's not, yeah, it's not as easy as that. And here after f5, I wasn't actually going to take on his, my opponent is trying to bail out here, and I think he had to, but I don't think, I mean, if I show any kind of reasonable technique, I should be able to win this, I think. But reasonable technique, and also I should stop talking. Reasonable technique has never been my strongest suit. Should have taken on h7, obviously, but I did not expect my opponent to blunder that pawn, so I did not take it. So yeah, this tactical shot I found. Yeah, if we talk about bishop e4, I can definitely throw in knight e7, but then black has f6 and he covers the h7 pawn. Which is why I played bishop h3, and I guess my opponent did not play f5 because he probably correctly assessed this position as completely lost. But my plan was actually to play queen h5 here. I was like in full romantic mode at this point, and I really wanted to continue going for this mating setup. And I actually think it's quite strong. As far as I could tell, it's, well, I still cannot refute it. I think bishop takes f5 comes next move, and I think I do win a ton of material and or give mate here. Okay, one or two more depending on how they go. And how long they go, obviously. Yeah, you played well, Spills, but I think queen d7, rook d8 was just way too passive. I assume you weren't watching the show, and you could have played, in particular, bishop c5 followed by d4, I think would have given you a very, very good game there. How frequently do I stream? These days, not very frequently, because I need to do something about my let's go. I need to do something about my home setup, because both of the notebooks that I would normally use for streaming are old and very prone to just breaking down at random intervals, which is not very good for consistent streaming. h3 is not supposed to be a particularly good move. I wonder why. Because if I play h5, I think it's a huge improvement to white compared to, like, then he can take on g5, and after knight e5, the inclusion of h3, h5 has to favor white a tremendous amount. Why do they never... Why is this not a move? Rook g8 is obviously very, very large on my radar, but then white just takes on b5, and it's not actually... I mean, apart from, you know, me having these two moves in, my pieces are not uniquely suited for, you know, kingside attacks. If I want to open the g file, I can just play g4 here. But once again, he just takes on g4, takes on b5 twice, and then starts playing in the center. And, you know, these pieces don't really make a great deal of sense. Did I watch any super high roller ball? I watched the very, very end of it. I don't really like MTTs, but there were people playing in it, which are obviously very interesting players. But in general, I am just not an MTT person, beater. I would watch, like, cash games, I would very much watch with, you know, any kind of a half sensible lineup, but the concept of a tournament, I just don't particularly like, and I don't watch many. Yeah, and there's this little discussion currently going on Twitter. He should play e5 here. Maybe he's still doing quite well. A good friend of mine suggested on Twitter that I should do some commentary together with Nick Schulman. And I am, you know, it's not going to happen because good things never happen, but I am very much in favor of that. I'm a huge, huge fan of Nick Schulman. I think he is a tremendously good commentator. Do I ever play any 960? No, not anymore, frankly, because there's just... I mean, the tournament has disappeared, and I don't really play very much Blitz online outside of these banter sessions. That would be amazing, Bitter, and Nick also agreed. I mean, there is already like a consensus in that Twitter thread on the fact that we would all like for that to happen. But at some point the reality would set in, and you know, we all would realize that it's very, very difficult to organize simply. But yeah, I'm very much in favor of that idea. I am, by playing before in d6, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to kind of speed up the arrival of my queen on the h file, but now I realize that I kind of blundered knight e3 here, and this may have been a mistake. Well, just look at my Twitter with tweets and replies. It's not a long thread, but same handle on Twitter as it is here, so not very difficult to find. I mean, I'm still doing very well, but I'm not giving, you know, as obvious a mate as I suspected I would be. I used to play a very decent amount of poker, Spain Aleph, but not anymore. I'm kind of in semi-retirement as a poker player. I've never been particularly good. I wasn't horrible, but I've never been particularly good, and it was also a tremendous drain on my time, and I have found other ways to kill time since. If he takes with the queen, rook takes h2 wins, but what's relevant is that if he takes with the pawn, I have a feeling rook takes h2 wins anyway, followed by knight g4 check, queen g5, queen h6, and then just mate along the... I'll go with it anyway. Let's just demonstrate. The point about this position is that his pieces are so passive and so misplaced that he will find it extremely difficult to do anything about this very, very direct idea, which seemingly is kind of slow. Yeah, king d7, I could actually... Yeah, I mean, king d7 is a bit aesthetically sort of non-pleasing, but we can go king e7. That's a good suggestion by Lars, so in honor of that suggestion, I will play king e7. I think Grishuk no longer really plays poker either. Far away from hell, as far as I know. Now he plays guitar. Yeah, and when he did play poker, he was exceptionally good. Okay, one more, I think. One more, and we'll wrap it up. I think I should probably stick to my own stuff against Nihal Sarin. He is way too good of a player for me to try to play something irregular. If he goes rook b1, I will not participate in theoretical discussions in queen a5, queen a2. Yeah, this is a bit annoying. People have been doing this against me recently, and like knight c6 equalizes, but I don't remember how, and I don't really feel like, trying to remember live on air. This shouldn't be horrible for black, but this is not much fun either, to be honest. Yeah, I'm not very happy about the fact that people have started playing this seriously again. The whole knight f3 bishop b5 check thing. It's not going to refute the Grunfeld, but it does lead to positions like this, which are more than a little bit annoying for black, frankly. Not horrible as such, but I think annoying is the best way to describe them. Do I consider chess in the 80s and 90s better than the current chess? Once again, define better. It's very difficult to have these discussions when we don't first agree on terminology. I am somewhat significantly worse here, obviously. Even e4, e5 is quite annoying. Because I lack one tempo. If I could reply to e5 with queen f5, I'd be okay, but b7 is still hanging. Do I think the players were stronger in the 80s and 90s? I've heard that argument from very strong players themselves. So, this argument definitely exists. I don't know if I agree with it or not, but this argument exists. But, like, the brand of chess that people were playing, what are we talking about here? I would like to get, like, b6, rook c7, and rook ac8 in, but I'm trying to figure out the best way not to blunder anything whilst doing that. I think I have to start with b6, but then rook fc1 annoys me. But many things annoy me about this position, frankly. Better quality, better players. Once again, I've heard this exact argument from Magnus himself during the closing ceremony in Vike. I was very surprised, frankly, to hear him say that, because he is arguably one of the reasons why the current decade is better. Because he wasn't playing then and he is playing now. Yeah, I'm not playing this well. After e5, I'm in I think serious trouble potentially. One thing that did change is that obviously with the advent of very, very strong computers, people started relying on computers so much more, and there has been a definite shift in how people view the game. But once again, this is not better. This is different. you cannot really talk about that difference in terms of better or worse, I think. It's just not how this works. After e6, I suspect I might be just completely lost because this knight never returns. Yeah, if he goes e6 here, I can just more or less resign because he is playing an endgame a full piece up. Well, resign is strong. I mean, I will continue, but it's... Yeah, I think this is a large mistake. It might still be winning. 94, I think he is actually still winning. Yeah, then it's not a mistake, obviously. If he gives mate here, it's not a mistake. I missed 94. Yeah, this is not the greatest advert for people thinking of picking up the Grunfeld. You should occasionally have to play the forced line in the Grunfeld. Yeah, this is just completely resignable. Which probably means I will have to play one more. Was not planning to play one more. Yeah, easily resignable position, because I cannot even play g5. He goes knight f5 and queen f7, but that's about the only thing I can do. So I will test that he sees it, and then I will resign. Yup. Well played by my young opponent, but in general, I think it's already not very pleasant here, but I should have... like, this is a position where you need to spend some time figuring out what the best move orders are to avoid landing in exactly what I landed in. And I didn't really spend that time. And yeah, and here I suspect this position is very critical because I don't really like h3. I don't think he needed to spend that tempo on h3. Rook fc1 immediately was very strong. And yeah, and now I realize that probably where it actually went completely wrong for me. I did not see the option to play knight a3 here. And I now realize that this is where I could have made my position a lot more playable, because this forces him to give up the c file, and then the rook goes somewhere, I don't know, some square. And we get a very similar position to what we got in the game, but I suspect maybe 2 to 3 tempi up compared. I'm still probably slightly worse, but at least this is somewhat playable. And yeah, this is already a very poor position. And rook c1, rook c8 more or less loses. But none of this should take away from the fact that my opponent played a very clean, very nice game. Don't want to end on this note though, so I will play one more. More adventurous, were players braver? Yeah, you can make those arguments, but once again, this is just, you know, it's territory of complete and utter speculation. I mean, there is no objective metrics to measure bravery in chess, I think. I think I have to try and justify what I'm doing by accepting this pawn sacrifice. I'm not expecting to be doing particularly well here, but I don't think anything else made any sense there. Having played the opening the way I played it, I have to, you know, my usual somewhat, you know, glib way to describe it would be, if I have to suffer here, I should at least have something to suffer for. And it's not a bad way to approach positions like this, because am I getting mated here? And if yes, how am I getting mated here? I think if he goes rook b6, the answer has to be I am not getting mated here, and then I just win a full piece. Might have to play one more after this, frankly, because this appears to be a bit of a non-game. Keep beating Peter, make him stay. Lars Brobakken knows where it's at. No, I think I have enough control over the board here to not worry about very much in this position. Yep, definitely one more. Let's play against the chat regular. That should be an appropriate way to finish the show. Don't fall for the gambler's trap, Peter. Quit while you're ahead. Well, I mean, this has not been the best banter ever, but it hasn't been a poor banter in terms of quality or results. So I think I can quit more or less between now and 2 hours in the future and still be ahead regardless of how these 2 hours go. Why are premiums here for getting to play French against Peter? Come on, says Alex Strasse. Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. Come on, Nizahe, where are you? Don't make me start another one. Steinitz called the French the dumbest opening in chess, and I agree with him. Now that's entirely untrue. French is a very, very complicated strategic opening, which I don't understand, but... Ah, okay, he's back. Good. I almost gave up on this, but more bishop b5 checks. Okay. No, you don't play b3 in this position. You should allow black to play c4. c4 is not such a horrible threat that you waste a full tempo on b3, I feel. Although it would appear that my opponent has some very definite ideas about playing b3, and it's not just a random decision he has taken in the heat of battle. And I should have played e6 instead of g6, as I now realize. g6 may have been a largish sized mistake. Because with the pawn on g6 and no pawn on e6, I could not in this position play c4, because he takes with the bishop on c4, and then there's all these knight g5 tactics that I might blunder. Whereas with the pawn on e6, I would feel a lot safer going for that line. Lawrence did say yesterday that the time slot for this show is not very convenient for him. So today I'm not blaming him for not being here, but the sequence of events he himself orchestrated for my previous Banter Blitz, where he replied to my original tweet within like 2 minutes saying, "Can I please has a game?" And yeah, I think if you want to push d4 later on, you should have taken on b4 first. I'm surprised my opponent didn't. It's still fine, but I think cb4, bishop c2 was a lot more critical than what my opponent is doing here. I quite like this position for black now. Sort of on strategic grounds at the very least. So he asked if he can has get a game, or can has a game, yeah, can has a game, and then never showed up to challenge me. That was confusing. Okay, now I need to figure out, I mean, my opponent obviously had the option there to play h3 and then trade off all 4 knights on the e5 square, and he preferred this, which makes me think that he is unhappy about that structure. But I also have this additional option of playing c5, c4 here, and breaking up his structure. And I would already have played it if not for the fact that he just takes, I think. And then the knight comes from f3 to d4 and then to b5, which is a good square. And I'll do it anyway because I think it leads to less standard structures, but I'm not sure this is strictly speaking correct. Yeah, that's a very, very famous joke in sort of Russian slash Soviet or Russian speaking countries about a dialogue a guy has with God on the subject of him being perpetually unlucky. And then God says, well, help me out there, at least buy a lottery ticket. And I think this point, you know, it's a very valid point about many things in life, that you cannot really complain about things not going your well if you are not prepared to sort of invest the bare minimum of effort into making them go well. And what my opponent doing here is just completely wrong, because White has too many weaknesses on the queen side here to play this passively and hope to not lose any of them. He should have gone sort of all in on the plan of landing the knight on b5 or the bishop, something. Give up on the c4 pawn and try to put something on b5, solidifying the queen side, blocking the b file. Then things that are happening to him now would not have been happening to him. Thanks, Petko Petkov. It's a very, very underrated quality in a broadcaster. A calming, soothing tone of voice, and you know, the amount of times I fell asleep listening to Phil Galfond explaining ranges in 3-bet pots is unbelievable. He was just, you know, it's just such a tremendously calming influence on me, Phil's voice. You should subscribe to Peter's ASMR YouTube channel. I actually looked up ASMR at some point, and it turns out there is no such thing as ASMR. It's a completely unproven phenomenon, but yeah, all that aside, do subscribe to my channel. There is no such channel. Anyway, this probably concludes the show. We are already 15 minutes over the limit, and people seem to be very worried in the office. Very worried in the office that I'm occupying the studio, which is probably needed for something else. So thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you tomorrow for our continued coverage of Altibox 2018, round 7 tomorrow at 4:30 Central European Standard. Thanks everybody, cheers.